Shalom. First off, I want to start off by saying all praises to Yahweh Bashem El Shai, Bashem Kakadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and mercy to the hopeful elect, preaching this word in truth and sincerity to men, women, and children that are risking their life and freedom to follow the Most High. I'm the brother Tazabah, and the Great Millstone, Arizona camp. Lord will, with another video to edify. And I gotta put this out there because Esau be dinging you for even trying to use other people's stuff. But full disclosure, this is being used for educational purposes. I do not make any type of monetary gain by playing this video. This is only being used for educational purposes. So I'm gonna play this, man. This is I gotta get a scripture. Because when you watch this video, man, it's all out prophecy, just jumping off the pages, right? So this is Habakkuk 2:1, Habakkuk 2:2. I mean, it says, and Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. And the vision is going to the prophecies, right? When you go into the Old Testament, it says he that is now called a prophet was called a seer in old times. So that's the seer's job, is to get the vision, right? So the vision that's being made plain now are these prophecies, what the Lord said would happen at the end of days. It says that he may run that readeth it. And when you're running, right, you're sure of something. You just don't run random directions and not knowing where the hell you're going, right? So when you're sure of something, we're writing this thing playing upon tables that you're able to be sure of the things that are coming to pass, right? So it says, verse 3, it says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time. The prophecy is for an appointed time. So the Lord has set up all the prophecies to come out in a perfect and proper time. There's another scripture that tells you that the Lord does not shake nor stir the times till the said measure be fulfilled. So we're seeing that the said measure is starting to be fulfilled. So the Lord is making things happen. Right? It says, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, right? And not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And the vision is now speaking. And when the scriptures talk about at the end it shall speak, is because before these things were silent. Before you didn't know exactly what the mark of the beast was, right? Before you didn't see these nations rising up against America, but now you're seeing it. Before, if somebody told you about pestilence, you didn't see any sicknesses on the earth, and now what? You got this whole current pandemic, right? So this is the vision that is speaking at the end, right? So I'm gonna play a little bit of this video. I'm stop it and play it as it goes, so I can get some precepts. And Lord, one is edifying, because brothers should really take the time to watch this video. It's amazing video, man. Today, and they'll be giving some insight into this. But before we bring them in, I want to begin by just kind of giving you a little bit of background into what has just happened, because this is really the core of what we're talking about today. So Iran and China have signed an agreement that essentially allows for a 25-year cooperation agreement where China invests about $400 billion, that's billion with a B, $400 billion into Iran to help to build up the nation's infrastructure and also to help with its economic policies. Listen, this is something China has been doing all around the world in a lot of different locations. But the reason this story is particularly... And the reason why China's doing this is because they're following the so-called white man's MO and how he got his foothold in all these countries, right? The scriptures talk about thou Moab that did follow her, that is hated in all that her works. Let me get that. I think it's in 2nd Esdras. Yeah, 2nd Esdras 15 in 46. It says, and thou Asia, that are partaker of the hope of Babylon. So Asia going into You know, these Asian countries, which Moab, the so-called Chinese, and Ammon, which are the so-called Japanese, they fully leech on to Esau and his ways, man. You'll see a so-called Chinese and Japanese man that they'll do everything the so-called white man does. They'll give up their daughters to this devil. You know, they'll fully think that this guy is on their side, man. They'll have nothing but white friends. They come to the U.S. You know, they give a fuck about their own people at that point. This guy is really, these people are really latched on to Esau, right? It says, and are the glory of her persons, right? Because when you look at America, let's say you go to New York, you can go to New York and look at it and go right over to Japan and see how Japan just outshines New York in luster, you know. This place takes full part in the glory of Babylon, right? It says, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, right? And right now, what they're doing an economic apartheid throughout the world, more predominantly in Africa, right? You have so many Chinese firms, and they're getting a lot of bad publicity because they're sitting there just abusing those people. And the places they're really doing this at is where Jake is, because there's a lot of Jakes still in Africa, right? You can go into those West African nations. That's where Moab is trying to get his business popping, right? They even got caught trying to steal huge mounds of gemstones, man. Saying that they were taking samples. But the gemstone probably weighed like 2,000, 3,000 pounds. You need that much to make a sample, right? So it says, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, it says, therefore said Yahweh, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And this is what's about to happen to you, Moabite. So this is why the scriptures tell you is why is the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing, because China is one of those cheap places that are raging, man, because they think all their economic straits and everything that they're planning is going to put them in the right spot to rule and to be on top, you know, in the coming years. And really, that's not going to happen. The scriptures already, you so-called Chinese have already had your rulership. The ones who get it next are the Israelites, right? And it's going to be under Yahweh Shai, King David. It's going to be under Yahweh Shai, King David, right? And we will rule the nations with a rod of iron and righteousness forever.
Of interest is because these two countries are not only major nations around the world, but they're also nations where the United States, as you probably know, has instituted very strong sanctions. We, of course, in the United States have sanctioned China and have had enormous sanctions on Iran for decades now. So it's a significant step. What this step seems to do is undermine those sanctions in many ways. And it raises a whole series of questions. If you have followed my work for any time, if you're familiar with me as a journalist, you know that I have been highly critical for many years of the U.S. sanction policy, the fact that it doesn't appear to work well at all, and the fact that it doesn't really seem to have a usefulness in terms of getting the result the U.S. thinks that it wants, at least the result that we're told that it will bring. Maybe there's a behind-the-scenes result that's actually being looked for, but it doesn't ever seem to really work. And so what we're watching now is a significant power shift take place as China, at the center of that power shift, seems to be undermining much of that U.S. sanctioned policy.
Now, you see, he's saying China is undermining them. Really, all these nations are. The scriptures tell you, O Lucifer, how thou hast fallen from heaven, because Lucifer simply means a light bearer, right? Heaven is their rulership, right? So this devil is falling from his rulership. Everybody's looking at him like he ain't shit, you know. Let me get this. It's Obadiah chapter 1. Or Obadiah verse 7. There's only one chapter. Obadiah verse 7. It says, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. And who was confederate with America for such a long time? China. China has been a big part of America, right? Them furthering their enterprises, building up their goods. They took over all the factories, right? It says, the men of the confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee, have delivered thee, have deceived thee, and prevailed against thee, that they might eat thy bread. And it says, and they that ate thy bread have laid a wound under thee, and there is none understanding in them. So all the nations, right? They've been making all these pacts. You have the BRICS nations, you have the one belt, one road initiative, right? Which is really just a new Silk Road, right? Where all trade is going through these countries that have made a pact. I mean, what are they doing? They're Xing out America out of the deal. So all the sanctions that they do don't matter because nobody's doing trades in that money. The only reason why the U.S. dollar is strong, the only reason why the U.S. dollar is recognized and the U.S. can sit here and put sanctions on people is not because they want people to buy your goods, because really China could hurt America simply by saying, you know what, we're not shipping you anything. We're not giving you anything. So really what it is the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. So for nations to do international trade, they have to trade in U.S. dollars, right? So what's happening now is all these nations are making huge deals between themselves and avoiding the sanctions of America, which is what? Basically saying we don't need your money, we don't care for it, and we're going to do our own thing. And that's what's making these people hurt. This is the wound that is laid under America, right? Now I'm going to fast forward just a little bit.
Great. Let me begin with this question because, as I mentioned, kind of in the lead up here, China seems to be severely undermining the U.S. in terms of this sanctions policy. Now, let me just begin by saying, when I use the term undermining, I don't necessarily use it as a derogatory term. For instance, as I mentioned, I've been highly critical for many years of U.S. sanction policy. I don't think it accomplishes what the U.S. thinks that it will. It's really used kind of as a hammer with which to keep other nations in line according to what the U.S. wants from them. But what China...
Look, he said U.S. policy is used as a hammer to keep the other nations in line, right? I got to get this. This is Jeremiah 50. And this is really how the American does it, man. They show it in all the movies. Any movie you see from the 80s to early 2000s, and it deals with any type of international stuff, country to country, you see them mention America like he's the big dog coming in the room, and whatever he says needs to happen, or there's going to be repercussions, right? This is really how they depict America in all these movies, because that's really how he rolls through the earth, right? Because the Lord gave the earth over to him. The scriptures tell you, Job 9:24, that earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Malachi 1:4 tells you who the wicked are, right? The scriptures tell you his blessing, right? By his sword he shall live. So this devil really does have the power in a leeway, and it was given to him by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. But here it is, right at the end of the days, and that power is dwindling. So this is Jeremiah 50 and 23. It says, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? Who was the hammer of the whole earth? America. Who beat down all the nations of the world? America. Who's the only one to drop nuclear missiles? America. Who's the only one to have military bases damn near in every single country? America. And there are no military bases from any other country in America. That's the hammer of the whole earth, right? It says, how is Babylon broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? And it's getting prepared to happen, man, because the Lord is going to allow war to break off in the U.S. It's only prophesied. It's prophesied. That's the whole thing. People might have their thoughts about how things should be and how they're going to be, but the scriptures tell you, let the Most High be true and every man a liar. So the prophecies of the Lord are going to come to pass. There's a scripture in the New Testament where it says, when the Lord could swear by no greater, he swore by his own name, right? So when you sit here and say, on me, I'll make it happen, I swear on my life, that means what? You're ending strife. You no longer have to ask that question, the same question, because they've taken it to the extreme, and that whatever they say at that point is going to be fulfilled. Right? The scriptures tell you the Lord's not a man that he should lie. So he put all this on his name. So now you're coming to a time where you're going to see him make it come to pass.
China has been doing over the past, certainly the past decade, and this agreement that they've just reached with Iran seems to go and undermine that sanction policy by saying, if you think that you can continue to club the rest of the world indefinitely, maybe you can't. What say you?
Well, first of all, I don't think the United States government has any legitimacy in pushing through its extraterritorial jurisdiction to another country or forcing other countries to follow its extraterritorial jurisdiction against another country.
See, he's telling them this devil has no right to go into any land and put sanctions on them. He has no right to throw a temper tantrum through the world because nobody wants to listen to him anymore. This is all prophecy. So let me get two scriptures. I'll get three and I'll close it out. This is Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14 and 6. It says I'll start at 5. It says I'll start at 4. I just gotta go straight to 4. It says that thou should take up the parable against the king of Babylon, right? Babylon meaning confusion, right? Now, America follows everything of Sodom and Gomorrah, Babylon, Egypt, all that. This is the place of confusion. When you look up the word Babylon in the Hebrew, it goes back to the word Babal, which means confusion. You don't know whether or not, when you walk down the street, you don't know whether or not that's an actual woman or a man, right? When you look at the monetary system, it makes no sense how this devil can pop up something like this and people consider this real money when it's backed by it's literally the American dollar is no longer backed by gold, no longer backed by silver. It's backed by oil futures. It's basically a special speculation on how they think the market is going to look. Right? It's really not backed by much. Right? But they're giving it to you for money and you think you're covered. It says, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Yahweh had broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the ruler. So the Lord is killing this man's rulership. He's breaking his rulership. That's why all these nations are coming up with their own ways and doing business and Xing this devil out. Right? It says, verse 6, it says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He was talking about the hammer in that video, right? This is the guy that smote all the nations with a continual stroke, sanction after sanction. So much so that they sat there and would not free up the money for Venezuela. So what? Now Venezuela has hyperinflation. Venezuela has so much gold in these banks that they have thrown sanctions on them to where they cannot get their gold. It's not through mismanagement that the country is in such an economic strain. It's through sanction and these devils closing up the rights for them to get to their money. Right? So it says, who smote the people in wrath with a continuous stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hinder it. You see, and that's what's happening. This devil is starting to be persecuted. Everybody's starting to point the finger at him like, man, you're the nigga of the earth. So nobody wants to deal any business with him, right? This is back in Habakkuk 2. I'll go to 6. Habakkuk 2, 6. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, right? And that's what these sanctions are. It's basically them saying, the sanctions are basically trying to set up a whole policy and a whole narrative that if you don't do business our way, you'll have no business. So it's basically them trying to funnel the world's wealth through them. Right? And it says, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and how long? And to him that laded himself with thick clay. And that thick clay, when you go to that term, thick clay, goes into the word ibadyat, which means debt. And America is heavily saturated in debt. So why the US dollar is not really worth much. They keep printing money year after year. Right? It says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booty unto them. And that's exactly what's happening. Through these deals, these nations are rising up out of nowhere on your asses. So now you're having a hard time. It's hurting you. It says, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. And this is what's getting ready to happen. They're spoiling you. When you're killing somebody's money in their bread basket, it's hurting you. It says, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood, for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all dwell therein. And this is what's happening, right? And I'm going to end it on this one, because here it is. This devil really thinks that these nations got to listen to him when America really doesn't offer anything to the world. This is not a nation that exports goods. This is a nation that imports goods. They don't need you. They don't want you. They see how decrepit and evil you are, and they don't want anything to do with you. This is Ezekiel 28. I'll start at 8. It says, they shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. I mean, you're about to be. Hey, if you think about the ones that die in the midst of the seas, but how do they die? Slowly drowning, right? To the point where they fight against the waves. They get washed over by wash after wash, after wave after wave after wave. They slowly get washed over to the point where they can't fight. And that's exactly how America's going out. There's wave after wave after wave just hitting it. It says, verse 9, it says, wilt thou say before him that slayeth thee, I am God? Right? And this is what's happening. These devils are really sitting there looking at the nations like, hey, nigga, did you not remember who I was? I'm America. Nobody cares, though. It says, but thou shalt be a man and no God in the hand of him that slayeth thee. Thou shalt die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken it, said Yahweh, and this is exactly what's happening. These devils are about to go out exactly how all the nations have been going out. Economic turmoil, wars, rumors of wars, ravaged by a whole bunch of internal conflict. This is how America's going down. And this is an evident token that you have this much money, $400 billion moving around, and you have no part in it. And it's coming from two countries that you hit the most with sanctions, and they don't give a fuck. So, this is something to look at, man. Keep your eyes on this. Lord willing, that was edifying. I'm going to say, call Allah, Yahweh, Shemina, Shabbat, Shem, Kadash. Shalom.